The sun hung low, casting a golden haze over my backyard, when I spotted the inflatable dolphin bobbing in my pool. My stomach churned. I didn't own a dolphin float. Nor had I signed off on the folding chairs, the smoky barbecue, or the chaotic sprawl of what looked like a family blowout spilling across my lawn. I stood frozen at my own gate, locked out, staring at a laminated sign taped to the bars, saw HOA private event. No resident access. Saw my pool. My property. No access. A sick joke, maybe? But then I saw her Margaret Voss, sprawled in my deck chair like royalty, sipping a garish pink drink with a tiny umbrella, her grandkids cannonballing into the deep end like they'd claimed the place. This wasn't a prank. This was a declaration of war. It all started 2 weeks prior, with a modest gray umbrella I'd propped up to shade my wife's old reading corner by the pool. Nothing gaudy, just functional. I combed through the HOA's 97-page rulebook twice. No violations. But the next morning, an email from Margaret landed like a slap. My umbrella was an unauthorized aesthetic offense, ruining the neighborhood's pristine vibe. I brushed it off as her usual power trip, her clipboard-wielding patrols a running joke among neighbors. That was my first mistake. Now, gripping a foreign padlock on my gate, I stared at a flyer official looking, but unsigned declaring my pool, requisitioned, for an HOA event due to my non-compliant behavior or no board vote. No signatures. Just Margaret's smug digital scrawl at the bottom. Her son lobbed a beach ball over my fence. Her cousins spread towels across my grass. My dog, Scout, barked himself hoarse from the porch. I rapped on the gate hard. Margaret didn't flinch, just raised her glass in a mocking toast. "Oh, de VYD," she called, feigning shock when I shouted her name. "Didn't you get the notice? You're suspended from pool access for noncompliance." Suspended from my own pool? I demanded to know what bylaw justified this lunacy. She waved a paper from her beach bag like a queen's scepter, claiming I was under investigation for the umbrella, uneven lawn maintenance, and patio furniture that had been there for years. "Standards evolve, de VYD," she smirked, her voice dripping with condescension. She said the HOA board had, unanimously, voted to host her family reunion at the community water feature, while my case was pending. I laughed, a bitter edge to it. Community water feature? I'd built that pool with my own SAVYNGS, on my private lot, no HOA dime involved. She claimed my land's proximity to their green space gave her interpretative jurisdiction. I asked what law school she'd flunked to concoct that nonsense. "The kind that doesn't get questioned," she fired back, her eyes glinting with triumph. 2 teens barreled past, yelling about a soda fridge, slipping through a side gate Margaret had propped open with a cinderblock. My fists clenched. I called the HOA president, Greg, but got voicemail. 2 other board members' radio silence. Margaret's laugh rang out, sharp and taunting. She'd planned this, knowing I'd be gone for the weekend, watching me load my truck, timing her takeover like a chess master. My backyard was a circus, coolers, juice boxes clogging the pool skimmer, towels strewn like battle flags. I didn't scream. I turned, walked inside, and spotted something on my desk, a dusty folder with the original HOA charter I'd helped draft 2 decades ago, tucked alongside property maps and a clause I'd half forgotten. My land, zoned as old agricultural property, was optional for HOA membership. I joined for neighborly peace, but never signed the final agreement ceding control. I'd laughed with the county clerk back then, joking about my escape hatch. Now, it was my Excalibur. Margaret hadn't just thrown a party. She'd ignited a wildfire on land she didn't own, and I was holding the dynamite. The next morning, over black coffee, I pored over the charter. Paragraph 9, subsection C, in my own handwriting, confirmed my lot lay outside the HOA's legal reach. I'd followed their rules out of courtesy, but no binding contract gave them power over my half-acre. I dug out surveys, signed agreements, a faded HOA letter acknowledging my non-mandatory status. At the county clerk's office, 20 minutes of quiet paperwork later, I held a certified document proving my pool and land were mine, untouchable by HOA whims. Adrenaline surged, tempered by a cold calm. This wasn't about gloating. It was about dismantling Margaret's petty empire, not just for me, but for every neighbor she terrorized over fence heights or mailbox shades. I drafted an email to the board copying Margaret, attaching every document. I demanded the lock's removal within 24 hours and warned of legal action. 10 minutes later, her reply had no apology, just venom. Saw your suspension from community features is extended due to escalating tensions. Avoid the gate during HOA events for safety. Saw no board meeting. No vote. Greg was off golfing. Another member was post-surgery. She was bluffing, banking on her bravado to bully me into submission. I called my old college buddy, Ethan, now a real estate lawyer who lived for shredding HOA cases. He cackled at my files. This is a knockout, DVYD. We filed a trespassing notice with the HOA and a county health complaint. Margaret's unsanctioned party lacked safety plans, with kids splashing near open alcohol. I had photos, trash piles, unsupervised, said minors, chaos. Then I got tactical. I installed weatherproof cameras, one on the gate, one on the deck, capturing every splash, every trespass. I swapped the gate hinge for a model with a removable pin, ensuring I'd never be locked out again. For a twist, I rigged a pool dye system I tinkered with years ago for leak detection, safe, non-toxic, UV-reactive dye that'd make swimmers glow neon under sunlight. Not harmful, just mortifying. I hooked it to the pool's return jet at dawn. The next time Margaret's crew swam, they'd leave looking like radioactive limes. By noon, her family was back, treating my yard like their personal resort. Teens blared music, adults sprawled on my hand-built grill, flipping burgers like they'd paid for it. Cameras rolled as kids roughhoused, nearly drowning, and someone smashed a solar light. I overheard adults mocking me as a bitter hermit, too selfish to share. Margaret, lounging in a sun hat, sprayed champagne and laughed, saying I was probably measuring grass blades instead of levying. I stayed calm, SAVYing every frame with timestamps. Friday's heat brought them back. 20 minutes after they dove in, the dye kicked in. Margaret's niece shrieked, her skin shimmering green. Pandemonium erupted. Kids gawked at glowing limbs. Adults scrambled. Margaret spun, her hands radiant as a glow stick. I stepped outside, sipping iced tea, feigning confusion. She demanded answers, her voice shrill. I shrugged, saying it was a legal filter test. She accused me of poisoning them. I calmly listed the dye's FDA approval, then mentioned my cameras had caught her trespassing, now part of a county investigation. Right then, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. I'd tipped him off days earlier. He eyed Margaret's glowing arms, one brow arched, and reviewed my documents. Vacate the property, he told her, taking a report. She stormed off, neon and fuming, her entourage trailing. The sheriff chuckled. You don't mess around, huh? I grinned. I like clarity. Silence reclaimed my yard. Scouts sniffed the pool, baffled. I knew Margaret wasn't finished. Entitled types never quit, but I was armed. Saturday stayed quiet, but by noon my phone lit up. A neighbor, Clara, sent a link to Margaret's Facebook post in the HOA group. Saw health hazard at shared pool. Saw, with a doctored photo of her niece's glowing arms, accusing me of dumping illegal chemicals in a public pool. She announced an emergency board meeting Sunday to strip my rights. I printed her post, her contradictory emails, my deed. I edited a 22-minute video of her crew's antics, trespassing, damage, negligence, the neon meltdown. At the HOA clubhouse, Margaret paced in heels, a scarf hiding her fading glow. Her allies squirmed as the board filed in. She ranted about rashes and urgent care visits, painting me as a menace. I let her dig her grave, then handed each member a packet, deed, emails, flyers, footage. I laid out the timeline, proved the pool wasn't HOA property, and played the video. The room went still. Margaret tried to interrupt, but Greg, fresh from the golf course, silenced her. The board watched her lies collapse. I stated I'd sue for further trespassing and requested my statement be minuted. Greg sighed. This was never an HOA pool. He asked Margaret to respond. She stammered about personal grudges, but the board voted unanimously to oust her from her compliance role, suspend her privy legacies, and issue a warning for abusing authority. Outside, neighbors nodded approval. An elderly couple thanked me for ending Margaret's reign. Relief washed over men at triumph, but peace. My fence was a shield, not a taunt. That night, Scout and I sat by the pool, clean and quiet. No floats, no chaos. But I knew Margaret would plot again. Monday, I installed a 6-foot privacy fence, code compliant, with a SAW private property, no HOA access SAW plaque. A biometric lock secured the gate, pinging my phone if tampered with. The HOA emailed, nullifying all claims on my land and confirming Margaret's removal. Tuesday, I caught her staring at my fence, arms crossed, silent. She walked away, deflated. Weeks later, I met Ethan at a diner, finalizing a lawsuit for trespassing and defamation. Not for money due law, $5,000 for cleanup, cameras, stress, but for accountability. The court date was quiet. Margaret, in a faded blazer, admitted she had no permission. Days later, a MOVing truck hit her driveway. She left without a word, her manicured lawn wilting. Neighbors whispered, but the air felt lighter. I grilled steaks, Scout chased fireflies, and friends laughed by the pool. The fence stood firm, the lock blinked steady. Margaret thought she could rule my land with fake signs and smug toasts. I showed her truth hits harder, shining brighter than any neon glow.